Hello, welcome to the latest of our Head Start webinars. Nice to see so many of you on today. Obviously, interviews are something that are concerning you, or maybe there's just lots more people on interview at the minute, which is a very positive sign for the market. Today, we're just going to run through two types of interviews in particular. One is the video interview and the other one is the telephone interview. We're going to start with the video interview. So first thing I should do is tell you who I am. My name is Chris Goulding. I'm the Managing Director of Wade McDonald. I've worked in recruitment for 21 years now, primarily within the Thames Valley, although I've held some roles across the rest of the UK as well. Most of the time I've personally recruited within the finance market, but I've also run teams that have covered data science, HR, procurement, most head office functions, IT, etc. Wade McDonald has been going for 30 years now, and we focus on HR, finance and data science. So again, most of this is aimed at those markets. So video interviews. Like it or not, most interviews, at least over the next month and probably beyond, will include some form of video interviews. Face-to-face is obviously harder to do during the pandemic. We'd seen face-to-face interviews start to slip back in, mainly at final stage, but as we've headed into the latest lockdown, obviously that's not possible. What you need to do is make sure that you're preparing for them so that you're not at a disadvantage to the rest of the market, whether you enjoy videos or you don't enjoy videos. It's a new experience for most people out there, so obviously we hope that this presentation will be useful for you and offer some sort of help and support. So the two types of video interview. Firstly, the live interview, and that's the one that we're seeing most commonly at the moment. Really, it's a video call with the interviewer. If you've been carrying out Zooms or team calls with your managers at work or perhaps with friends and family over lockdown, like most of us have done, is pretty much the same as that, but as an interview as well. The most important thing to do is make sure that you've got the technology working properly and that you've got good preparation in place. Most people are beginning to feel as relaxed as a standard interview, which may not be that relaxed depending on how you normally are for an interview, but it is slightly different when you're doing it through a screen. The pre-recorded interview is where you will normally have questions thrown at you that will be recorded on some specialist software. You might get sent an app in advance, or you might actually be sent links directly onto the internet. But normally you'll have a certain number of attempts to answer each question and then be able to save the one that you think is the most appropriate. Interviews are probably harder to come by at the moment. Well, in fact, they are harder to come by. Our job flow is probably about 50% of where it was pre-pandemic, so things are getting better. But as such, there are less interviews when you're looking for a job than there probably would normally be. So prepare like you never have done before. Make sure you've done research into the business, go onto websites, Google them, try and see if there's press releases. Make sure you've gone onto LinkedIn to look at the interviewer. Try and work out where they've come from so that you've got questions you can ask them personally during the interview. Ensure you know your CV inside out. That may sound obvious, but there's nothing worse on an interview than being caught out through dates, etc. Make sure you've thought about what your key achievements are for each role that you've had on your CV. Be clear about your reasons for leaving, etc. And try and have the job spec in front of you. If you haven't got a printer at home, I know this can be difficult, but take notes on it beforehand if you haven't got the full job spec, just so that you know where you are with it and have questions prepared around the job spec. Without meaning to patronise, check your technology before the interview. Nothing worse than it going wrong whilst you're on the interview. You want to make sure that you've tested it on your laptop, your phone or iPad. Call friends and family to have a live test rather than just test it live in the interview. Particularly check the camera, check the microphone's working, make sure you're in a room with strong internet connection. Make sure it's plugged in so that you're not going to run out of battery during it, so that everything goes as smoothly as it can. Just as you would do in a face-to-face interview, try and check that your phone's off, and make sure you're not going to get interrupted by your children, by your pets, by partners, because there's nothing worse than someone walking in the background whilst you're doing your interview, or someone opening a door on you. Appearance-wise, I think what you want to try and do is make sure that you can be seen, but you're not too close to the screen. Ensure you're at the center of the screen, and try and get the camera eye level if you can. Try and look into the camera, as it would appear then that you're more engaged with the interviewer than if you've got to look up to the sides, around you, etc., to see where they are. Try and be in a location that doesn't have too much background noise. You don't want to be disturbed. Try and make sure the lighting's working. You don't want a bright window behind you, as it makes it harder to see you. I wouldn't put on too many of those fake backgrounds that Zoom offers, because sometimes your head will disappear. And try and make sure there's nothing behind you don't want seen. Be in a tidy space and dress smartly like you would do for a normal interview. Body language is very important. Obviously, it's harder to portray this over a video than you might find it normally day to day in front of somebody. But be aware of your facial expressions. They can stand out more than normal. Be careful not to move your eyes around, as we just showed, because it can look like you're distracted. Ensure you don't fidget too much and avoid covering your mouth. Try and smile as much as you can do. Okay, so that's the video interview. Telephone interviews are probably something people have done more in the past, but just to run you through that quickly as well. Most recruitment processes we're running are starting with telephone interviews, then they're moving into the video interview. That's obviously assuming that your CV's got shortlisted. Said here it's a new experience for most. As I've said, it has been more commonly used in the past, so hopefully people have had some exposure to it, but again, it is different than your face-to-face interview. So first of all, preparation again is the same as we were talking about really before with videos. Do your research, understand the journey that you would have to work in case people ask you. You can't guarantee that you're going to be working remotely after lockdown at the moment. Do your preparation on LinkedIn, know your CV inside out, read the job spec, highlight areas to have questions about, be prepared for gaps around your CV, reasons for leaving, etc., as we've talked about already. Have the job spec in front of you. And actually, just as an added, make sure your voicemail is professional in case that when they call you, you miss it. The worst thing you could have at this stage is the interviewer getting put off before they've even spoken to you because your voicemail wasn't professional enough. Environment again, so check your telephone's on full charge, check you've got good reception. Make sure you're in an area that you want the video to happen. Make sure that you've got access to your CV and the job spec. This can actually be easier on a telephone interview because you could have a laptop on at the same time. Have a chair that gets your posture right. If you're sat up straight, you'll sound better. If you're slouched or lying down, it can sound like it. And again, make sure you're not going to get interrupted by your children, pets or partners. The interview itself, if they ring you, make sure you answer professionally. Keep the body language positive. As we've said, it will help project your voice. Stay calm and try and speak at an even pace. I know this can be difficult when you're panicking, but that will come across even more on a telephone interview. Just try and stay as calm as you can. Try not to be too monotone. You want to sound a little bit excited about the position, so it's important that you're aware of the tone of your voice. Stay professional at all times. Obviously, stay polite. Try not to speak over each other, and this can be really difficult. And the same with a video, really, but it is really off-putting. So just attempt as hard as you can do not to speak over someone. Let them finish before you start. Have some questions at hand to ask the interviewer. Ask them questions about them. People love speaking about themselves. Try not to mention financials before they do, and make sure you end the call professionally, thanking them for their time. After the interview, and this is telephone or video, we suggest actually sending an email reaffirming your interest in the role, as long as you are, and recapping on areas that you think there was synergy in that were uncovered during the interview. If it's through an agency, send it to the consultant, they can forward it. If it's direct, then obviously send it directly to the person. LinkedIn, message them if you can't get their email address, but I would definitely try and make some sort of contact yourself if you're keen. So that pretty much runs through everything. If there's anything you think we haven't covered off, please do get in contact with me. My mobile number's here. It's 07825 758 710. Drop me an email at chris.goulding@wademcdonald.com. Visit our website. You'll find this presentation on there. Go and follow us on LinkedIn for other advice and to keep an eye out on roles. But we hope that it's been useful, and obviously hope you keep well during this latest lockdown. Thanks a lot.